1, 2, 3, 4.
In this podcast, you will be here. Knights of Vader, includes, but is not limited to, talk of Star Wars, not Reagan's. We can't truly prepare you for the junk that follows this song, but hey, we gave it a try. So here's the Knights of Vader. Crystal Fox reports they are divided. Prequel, sequel, hate and love they fighted. I know that we are just musicians hired, and their time is up. So here's the Knights of Vader.
Impressive. Most impressive.
A big thank you to An Inspiriority Complex providing our theme song.
You're welcome.
It is August 23rd, 2024. My name is Zack Weber, and joining me is the man with a fistful of Canadian funny money, Chris.
Hey, what show is this? I don't know, but happy to be here. What's going on?
And we have not just the Bard of Vader, but the person who gets reviews in the Facebook group along the lines of, why is this person on here and who are they? Rob.
That's my favorite type of review, you know?
The hostile, who is this person who's been on the podcast for 6 years now? Yes, folks, we are here not to discuss Star Wars nonsense, because there's no shortage of hot button topics in the fandom right now. D23 nonsense, Electrolyte being canceled, Electrolyte merchandise being canceled, the possibility of the Electrolyte being scrubbed from Disney Plus. No, we're not here to talk about any of that. We're here to talk about the things that matter. A new Alien movie. For those who might not know, that back when the podcast started all the way in 2017, we actually discussed Alien Covenant. Force Ghost Jim and I, we devoted an entire episode to Alien Covenant, less than 2 months out the gate for this podcast. So it goes to show our priorities were always misaligned from the get-go.
Well, I didn't even know that. I don't even think I ever knew you did that with Jim, because we did Covenant years later on Cinemoddities.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the other best thing is that the only Knights of Vader episodes to have an Alien movie focus is Alien Covenant, Alien 3, and this one, aka all of the worst ones. It's great how that how that works. It's like, don't talk about any of the good films. That's the strategy. It's good.
Well, I remember we did Alien over on Cinemoddities at some point in history.
Wow.
At which maybe half an hour in, I go on my tirade about why Aliens is a bad movie. And then we did Prometheus and Covenant together, or were they separate, Zach? Do you remember?
No, we did them together. It's funny. I went back.
Okay.
I went back and re-listened to those episodes. It's fascinating because if you listen to all, because we did Prometheus and Covenant right as like the pandemic was beginning, and there's all this use of the terms like quarantine, and we're like, oh no, we're just like, oh god, like what is happening to society right now? But the most profound thing, Rob, is that at the beginning of the Covenant discussion, you're just like, I have an idea for what the third one of these movies is going to be. And like, I might insert the clip of it at some point into the episode because it's kind of great.
I absolutely remember what it is. If it's David versus Goliath,
yes,
what you're talking
about.
I've thought about that since that episode, and I really wish we get that third one.
give it time. If the Walt Disney Company doesn't try to write this off as a tax write-off on their taxes, there's a good chance Ridley Scott, after the manic high he's on right now between producing this and Gladiator 2, that might become a reality depending on how much Disney just shrugs.
Right.
But yes, we are here to discuss Alien Romulus, a movie that as I was watching it and leaving the theater, this very specific quote came to mind, and I put in our group chat, and I quote, "God bless the Disney executive that was on vacation the day Ridley Scott submitted his senile, coke-fueled notes to Fede Alvarez."
Zach, ever since you sent me that, I have used it to explain my feelings on this film to several other people. It's very profound and accurate.
Thank you, Chris. Like that was, because I will say, like going into this, like the marketing was rather lukewarm. It felt derivative. It felt like a Force Awakens level. Like, okay, it's like, this feels like we're doing everything we've done before. We had Daisy Ridley was back. I was happy she was our protagonist again. John Boyega was there as well. And I'm like, okay, I'm glad that we're getting the Force Awakens 2.0. And then like, oh God, like there was like, they let influencers see this, I think like 2 weeks in advance. And it was just the usual, like, oh, this is the best Alien movie since Aliens. It was your typical Disney rhetoric for like people that they're trying to pander to. And then, oh God, then there was the controversy. We're not going to spoil it. Do we give a spoiler warning, or are we just going to dive directly into the deep end?
I don't feel like like anyone who should be mad that it's getting spoiled for them should have seen it after a week. Like, come on, we live in a civilized society.
I would agree. Yeah.
Fair enough. So,
but we won't spoil any of the other Alien movies. We're only going to spoil this one.
By the way, I got a spoiler of a picture of one spoiler alert, one mutant alien from the end of the movie I saw a picture of about an hour before I went to the theater, but that was the day after it came out, so there's a time and a place. It's been over a week.
Fair. So like going into this, like I was reading a lot of stuff telling me like, oh, like there's they Grand Moff Tarkin somebody, and I'm just like, who could they Grand Moff Tarkin for the Alien franchise that would make people mad? My first knee-jerk reaction was Sigourney. I'm like, oh God, we have a digitally de-aged Sigourney. But like, I can't imagine Jimmy C, especially him being part of the Disney fold now, would let them do this. I imagine he would put his foot down. I'm like, who else is there? Like Yaphet Kotto? Is there like a digitally de-aged Harry Dean Stanton maybe? I'm like, what would it even look like? What is a digitally de-aged? Like I just kept racing through all these options.
Wow, these are all such better ideas. These are great ideas. Like, it's kind of like that Aliens Colonial Marines game where Hudson like somehow survived, like, and he's just still alive on like LV-426 for some reason, even though we basically saw him die. Like, imagine
and the planet got nuked.
Yeah, in that game, he's just alive inexplicably, and the whole colony's still there. It makes no sense. But if like, you know how at the beginning of the movie, there's like all the shrapnel of the Nostromo. Imagine if it was just like Harry Dean Stanton somehow like crammed himself into a fridge, and he was just waiting to get picked up, and he's like somehow for whatever reason he's mortally injured but not dead. Now we're talking. Now you're cooking.
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
gas.
I mean, I would love for them to, like, he's frozen in the deep of space, like the xenomorph body, and they unthaw him, and the first thing he says is, "You gotta pay me more for this."
I think I've earned my full 2 shares by now.
But so like I really oh God, I eventually put the pieces together, and like I think someone said the word like Ian Holm, and I'm just like, oh, I'm like, all right, like that's a weird character to go down in this. Like, it's like the equivalent of Grand Moff Tarkin. Like, is anybody really getting upset about digitally de-aged Grand Moff Tarkin back in 2016? And it's like, oh, people are gonna die on the hill of digitally de-aged Ian Holm. And I'm like, okay, like I guess that makes sense. Like android science officer, like it seems like the sort of thing that Disney would want. And so again, went into the movie again cautiously optimistic, and like I don't want to say blown away, but it was like a lesser version of like Rogue One. Like it was it wasn't to that level. I'm like, wow, but I'm like, this is solid. Like it's a greatest hits of the ungodly stew of the Alien franchise. It takes all the elements of all the movies and just stirs them in together for better or worse until you get this weird sort of like slop that tastes good enough. I don't want to know what's in it, but it tastes good enough. And it's low-key insanity. And thank God Ridley Scott somehow has his finger on the scale of the Alien franchise still.
I have to agree. I mean, I went into this with rock bottom expectations. Like, I knew I had to see it, but I was totally like, I don't think I'm going to like it because I like no Alien movie other than the first one. And I'm pretty positive on Prometheus, but I had my issues with it. And I was, I think in the same boat as you, Zach, pleasantly surprised. This was miles better than I thought it was going to be. But there are certainly things I have a lot of issues with. But the craziness is what I'm all about. I mean, that last, 20 minutes? That's like my jam right there.
There's just not really like, for me, there's just not really a new dynamic between the characters. Like sure, they're miners and they're like lower class Weyland-Yutani employees than we typically see, but like I don't know, man. It as someone who like fully retains the plot structures and locations and character dynamics of all 7 Alien sequels in their mind at all times, it didn't feel very new to me.
I definitely don't think it's new in the slightest. It's almost, I mean, what, like 80% of the dialogue is recycled from all the other movies? Something
That
like
might-
that, it seemed.
Yeah, that might be its biggest crime, really. Taking any dialogue from Aliens is like that should not have been allowed.
Well, I want to say, here's a major spoiler. Andy, the synthetic in this movie, for no reason whatsoever, says Sigourney's, for this show, Sigourney's line from the end of Aliens, and it is played delivered so poorly, I honestly thought it was like an outtake as I watched that part of the movie. I was like, this was something where he didn't know they were filming, or maybe it was 6 different takes that they cut together, because it was horrible.
Yeah, and I mean, you also have an android trying to speak in English to a xenomorph, which is just, he wouldn't do that. He just wouldn't do that.
But this is the thing, is that like there's moments like that which are very like obligatory studio note. Like that's one thing. Like Ridley Scott is a lot of things, like a madman, one of his many crimes, but he's not like, you don't get any of that really in Prometheus or Covenant. Like you don't get those like really like punch you in the face nostalgia moments, which has to be a version of a studio note being like, well, somebody has to say this.
Yeah, I
like
can see that.
somebody, that's what it felt like that moment. But like the thing is I wouldn't mind that line if they kept the bitch part out. If they kept that out and he's like, get away from her, like the way he just kind of like stammers over his like words, that wouldn't bother me. But I will say, of course, Rob, we have to get into theater going experience. It wouldn't be a proper movie discussion unless we did that. I saw this twice in theaters. The first time was in Dolby, and it was solid. Like it's your solid like way to go see a movie, and you're not going to get like a terrible like theater experience just projection wise. The second time was something I've never done before. It's breaking new ground. I saw it in 4DX, which is like the equivalent of seeing it as a theme park ride. And I'm just like, okay, like I'm curious to see like where this is going, especially after like the hype of like Twisters 4DX and like people like memeing that to death. I'm like, okay, like I'm curious. Like this should be interesting.
I've never seen anything in 4DX, but I've known about it for so long, and I love doing the thought experiment. Every time I go see a movie, I'm always like, what would this be like in 4DX? And I think the last one I found very funny was like, what would Yorgos Lanthimos' Kinds of Kindness be in 4DX? It'd be a lot of licking, if anybody's seen that movie.
But the thing I'll say is that like, oh God, I will say the 4DX for like, they did 2 of the trailers in 4DX. One of them was Captain America, Anthony Mackie. And that was like, oh God, that was just like painful because it's just like rocking you back and forth the entire time. Like every single time like something happens, it just rocks you back. I'm like, okay, it's like, what else is it going to do for a trailer? Like there's nothing else that's happening. And then Beetlejuice had it. And that kind of worked effectively because like there was a lot of like air burst and a lot of like your seat like punching you in the back, strangely enough. That it worked for that weirdly more than it worked for Captain America. But the 4DX was interesting because like, oh God, because after kind of like just seeing it 2 days in a row, when their little spaceship takes off to go up like into space, I'm like, oh God, this is going to feel like, oh God. And that wasn't that dramatic. Like it was like the thing was rocking back to forth, but it wasn't crazy. But where the theater kind of went bananas, and like I said, Rob, you're less of a theme park person. Chris may remember this. It felt like, oh God, I'm trying to think of a good example. It's not Star Tours level, Chris. It's not that level. But like, do you remember Terminator 2 3D Battle Across Time?
Yeah, where the seats just drop like an inch when the big spider thing blows up, or what?
A little bit, yes. Like a little bit like that, but like the equivalent of just like, oh God, like, because the theater also shoots off smoke. It has strobe lights. Like there's a little bit more to it than just simply like your seats are just rocking you back and forth like a simulator.
Oh yeah, there's a little bit of water spray, I think, when that in Terminator 3D. Yeah,
but where the theater really took, I will say that when the boyfriend or the ex-boyfriend character, I guess his name is Tyler. I guess he's British man number 2. And he's the less egregious British man. He's the one I want to die the least painful death. And
now I know exactly who you're talking about.
well, we have ex-boyfriend British man, and then we have there's something in the water. Like there's him. And I'm just like, please let him die. Please let him die the most horrible death. And yet somehow he gets a strange death, not really a sadistic death. Anyway, though, but like when the ex-boyfriend character, when he dies with all the blood, that was like you getting sprayed in the water, like sprayed in the face with water, man. Like every single time there was any blood, like you were living that scene. But the scene toward the end where they're in the elevator shaft, the theater just goes bananas between smoke, fog, like strobe lights. Like the seats were literally like pretty much like oh god, for a solid 5 minutes straight, just rocking you around. I'm like, it was one moment really. Like the seats are doing their thing throughout the whole movie, but that one sequence was like, wow, this is like you're getting your money's worth out of this. And something kind of just an idea to put out there, but on the back burner, is that like considering this is the Walt Disney Company and everything has to be synergy and IP based, I wonder if they'll try to milk an attraction out of this. Like I feel like, again, it's R-rated, but considering that like they have Deadpool and Wolverine stuff like in the theme parks right now, and that is much more R-rated than this is, even though it's more, oh god, conventional R-rated. I couldn't help but think, I'm like, if this thing made more money, I'd say it was a slam dunk. But it definitely felt like I'm surprised Disney isn't at some point trying to incorporate this into the theme parks, because it feels like that's what it was trying to go for.
Didn't they try that once and they backed off on it? Like, wasn't there like an alien experience thing that was supposed to be this franchise, yes, and then they like blanded it out?
Well, yeah, that's a story for another day. The extraterrestrial alien encounter at the Magic Kingdom that Michael Eisner originally wanted as an alien attraction, and Imagineering fought him on it. That was, oh god, like 30 plus years ago.
Yeah, but you know, they're very superstitious people. You know, it already failed once, according to them.
Well, of course, but like that's the thing though. It's like it would be another version of like a smuggler's run. Like, oh, like you have to sit there and do this. Like it wouldn't be anything like that. Where like I said, it was just. I couldn't help but be like, okay, if this was any other film studio, it would be like, with the exception maybe of Universal, this would be kind of like, maybe, but it felt like that. But yeah, no, the Dolby was solid, like just as a way to watch it, good sound, good visuals. No more going to the Gonorrhea, Rob. Thank God those days are done and over.
Did they quarantine? Did they quarantine that place finally? Is that what you're saying?
I can only hope they did.
So Zach, while you were describing the 4DX experience, and excuse me if this has already been discussed on Knights of Vader, Chris was just shaking his head at every like little bit of 4DX you described. Chris, do you not like getting punched by machinery while you watch a movie?
Well, if it's first of all, if it's called 4DX, it should be already 3D, which I'm guessing it wasn't.
That's only for Avatar: The Way of Water, sir.
Remember 3D? No, but
Jimmy C.
I don't know.
3D.
It might be, yeah. Like that's like D-Box basically, right? Like that's what it is, right?
D-Box. Now that's
what
a name
it
I
is.
haven't heard in a long time.
That's still what it's called here. I don't know about
see that
in America.
I think D-Box was originally what Regal did, and then they like added more gimmicks on top of it, and they rebranded it as 4DX.
Oh, I best D-Box doesn't have water sprays and stuff like that, I guess. Maybe that's the main difference. But I don't know, man. That always seemed like a distraction to me, but I guess I would indulge it on something that I've already seen like numerous times, and I am up for watching again. Like I heard, like there was some theaters that had D-Box here for Phantom Menace anniversary. Like I could have tolerated that.
For the Phantom Menace, there was 4DX as well. Yep,
that might have been good, but I wouldn't. I probably wouldn't do that on the first viewing of a film, and I guess you didn't do that on the first viewing of a film.
I guess for a movie that doesn't matter, like this, where like it's like no, I cannot imagine sitting through like 3 hours of Avatar and just being like rocked back and forth. Like I'd be like, no, like I'd jump out of my skin. But I will say that like seeing, because again, this was both Friday opening weekend and that Saturday back to back. sitting in the 40X on Saturday, like knowing where the film was going, twist and turn wise, and watching people in the audience who obviously were just seeing it for the first time. It was fun watching their reactions, like getting, not to jump all the way to the end to Engineer Incest Baby, but like getting to that and just the audience's reaction. This is where I wish I was recording the audio, Rob, to like the theater, because I was just like, oh, the reaction to that was like, oh, that was great. I'm just like, everyone's just like, I just, the collective gasp. And I'm just like, yes, like Ridley Scott, cook.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, all right. But okay. So like, let's just talk a little bit about the less memorable parts of the film. Just a little bit.
You mean the first 3 quarters?
Yeah. So like, so here, okay, here's my problem with this, right? Like some of the press said, I feel like there was, you never listen to actors, but they were making comments like, wow, this fits perfectly between Alien and Aliens. And it's just like, you should under no circumstances watch this in chronological order from Alien this to Aliens, because all it does is just take away designs from Aliens and show them in advance chronologically in a lackluster fashion. For example, like the atmosphere processor on the planet they're working on, like, that is a reveal in Aliens. Here it's like a static background there, and it's just there. You know what I mean? It's just like, I feel like they just made like Hadley's Hope. They have the same little bar sign that Hadley's Hope has. It's like they got the same sign that says bar. Like, I don't know, man. They're just taking stuff from the Aliens and just sticking it around that first 20 minutes on that. What's it called? Jackson something, that planet. You saw it twice, Zach. Come on.
Jackson's Hope, I want to say.
Okay.
I could be wrong, but I think that's it.
It really also has hope in the name.
Oh, Jackson Star, excuse me.
Okay.
Jackson
good,
Star, excuse me.
Thank God. But yeah,
Scott's
I don't know.
notes weren't that prolific.
Yeah, Ridley Scott hasn't even seen Aliens. That's the best part about all this.
Who's this Jimmy C guy?
He's like, not what I would have done. Never mind, it's like regarded as like one of the best films of all time. He's like, nah, not exactly what he's had such fire quotes and interviews lately. Like he was like a couple weeks ago, there was one that was like, I should have done like 2 or 3 more Alien sequels at the time.
He said that. We talk about that, like in the Force Ghost Jim conversation from 2017, in Rob and I's discussion in 2020. It's like Ridley Scott's like, I'm making 5 more sequels to Covenant. It's like, Ridley Scott, you're like 78 years old at the time this is like happening. He's like, I don't care, more David for all. And to this day, my absolute favorite Ridley Scott interview is somebody questioning him on the age of the space jockey in Alien, being like, Sir Ridley, like the space jockey is like petrified, which would signify it's like over 5,000 years old. But you've explicitly stated that the time jump from like the events of Prometheus to Aliens only like 60 years. Can you please explain like why it would be fossilized? And his response is, what the hell are you talking about? the complete disregard for any sort of continuity.
The nicer version of the Michael Bay, Ben Affleck thing about Armageddon.
Dude, I wish I could remember the guy's name. In the early days of the Clubhouse app, I was on there once for an AMA, and it was the guy he produced the Alien 4 movie box set. And this guy was doing an AMA on a Clubhouse, and he's like, yeah, I personally oversaw the assembly cut of Alien 3 that put in all the deleted scenes and all that. And he was talking about that. And just in the course of the interview, he threw out, oh, but yeah, I was actually the guy on set for Prometheus that had to explain to Ridley Scott why this can't be LV-426.
That's great. Imagine being a continuity expert for him.
Yeah.
And Ridley Scott accepted that. It's like for most of
yeah.
I think it was real late in the game that was not LV-426 in Prometheus. Like real late, like after a lot of stuff was built. Like it doesn't.
I remember the marketing for Prometheus back in like 2011, like seeing all of it and being like, oh, wow. Like, and that was still when he was going around telling people like, oh, this isn't an alien movie. It has strands of alien DNA, but like, it's not an alien movie. And then that trailer was just like, nope, like this is like going into space jockey territory. And it's just like, so like, again, this is before like the JJ Abrams, like, oh no, Benedict Cumberbatch is not Khan, he's John Harrison. Like it's before that level, so people really didn't care. But no, Ridley Scott is a treasure. And just like, not to go, like, one of my favorite Ridley Scott stories beyond the other one as well is like he was gonna make a Gladiator sequel where Russell Crowe is gonna come back to life and kill Jesus. Like to this day, like everybody forgets about that, but that's like a legendary, like doomed Ridley Scott project. Russell Crowe comes back to life in Gladiator 2 to kill Jesus. It reads like a Family Guy like gag.
So close to that might have saved us from veering into the dark timeline since 2012 where everything's been garbage. Yeah, I don't know. That's weird. So like so the obvious thought about this movie to me is there must have been a large chunk of time where instead of Rook, Ian Holm, it was going to be David. Like that must have been on the table at some point, right?
I don't think so. Like this is the thing. Okay, I'm glad you brought this up because as I was like my favorite, because like going into this, like on top of the whole like Ian Holm thing, I don't want to say being ruined for me, but just kind of being aware of it like indirectly, was like friend of the show, John Justice, host of My World, was texting me about this the night before. And like I asked him, like, is there any Prometheus Covenant connection? And he's like, yeah, like it's one specific thing combined with one line of dialogue, but beyond that, it's really nothing overt. I'm like, okay. And so like, I'm not going to lie. I did a bit like, Rob, you know, when Captain America shows up in an Avengers movie, when I saw the black goo, I started to cheer. Like I did a visible fist pump in the theater when I saw the black goo. And I'm just like, God, and this is where I'm like, God damn it. No Disney executive. No Disney executives gonna be like, you need to put the black goo in here for Prometheus.
Zach, I am right there with you. When that came up and they called it, or CGI Ian Holm called it the Prometheus Fire or whatever. I saw this movie with 3 other people who literally have never seen any alien movie before. And so I like grabbed one of their shoulders and I was like, that's the black goo. And they were like, I saw it at one of the theaters. This will come up later. I saw it at one of those theaters where you can order food at any point during the movie. And so he was like, Rob, stop shaking me. I'm eating my panini right now. And I'm like, it's the black goo.
But that's the thing. That's like at one point too, like when all the speculation was happening after the influencer saw this, I wondered if there'd be Michael Fassbender in this. But I think they were intentionally trying to move away from all that. I don't. If this movie does get any sort of sequel or successor, I don't know how you don't. Especially the way that the black goo is such a pivotal plot point, like in the 3rd act. I don't know how you don't bring at least reference David at some point, because he's clearly doing something. Again, like the movie falls into, even though this movie is very more refined than Prometheus and in Covenant for mass audience appeal, it does fall into the same trap. It's just that like, oh, the events of Prometheus took place, like they're explicitly acknowledged. And then like, so they reversed engineered the black goo from Big Chap Alien from Alien. But they're not aware of the whole Prometheus planet. Like they wouldn't go back and go get like the endless vases of black goo. But
Rook says that stuff is what Mr. Wayland died for. So that sort of tells me they must have got in contact with David at some point. So they should know about all that.
But that's what I mean though. So like why they have to, like, I think about which is easier, finding the needle in the haystack of finding a petrified like ice cube of Big Chap Alien, or going to that planet, going into like the weird, like, oh God, like dirt mound pyramid and getting one of the 30,000 vases of black goo. Like that's where like, but that's perfect Ridley Scott schlock. That's what I love though. Like again, this movie, again, it's just as disjointed as everything else. It's just more slick. Like, can you imagine, Chris? Like, were you there when Prometheus came out? Everybody made fun of that. Like, went like between like CinemaSins, Red Letter Media. Were you there for that? Like, just mocking Prometheus?
It's so hard to put yourself back in that mindset, because I think I told you this like maybe like a month or two ago. I rewatched Covenant for the first time since it came out, and like I remember like being like strongly opposed to its existence at the time I saw it in theaters, and I was just like, this ain't right. They missed the trick here. But I mean, it's aged really well by my current perspective, which I don't like it. I don't know if my standards have changed, or if like I've just been watching so much garbage that like something from 2012 or whatever, 2017 even seems good.
You didn't know how good we had it in 2017.
Oh man, that was the real end of the line, you know. but I it's just like I feel like, and I'll take anything with the engineers like over like these. They're just afraid, like they so explicitly avoid all that territory because everything's all the result of like frozen cocooned Big Chap. And like, so I guess Big Chap ended up like somehow like strung up into the ceiling, and they just left him there.
Yeah, whatever.
Like
that
Jesus,
was. Yeah, exactly.
Like he's supposed to be. But so like that didn't make sense to me. Here's the other thing. Like I hope, like I don't know how long they're implying that it's been since this disaster happened, and then the kids find the station, because like they picked it up on their sensors as if it was like been derelict for a long time. So it's like is Weyland-Yutani not sending anyone to like check out the emergency calls that have been coming from the station? Like that I didn't understand.
But this is what I was expecting too, considering that like going into this, like everyone's saying this is like a weird stew of the entire franchise. I was expecting at the end you were going to get Weyland-Yutani commandos. That's what I thought, considering like they've also been weirdly hyped up in all this. I thought like alien fandom culture, that is. I thought maybe they would show up toward the end, like, and that would be and you would get maybe Lance Henriksen as well, like digitally de-aged, like Ultron Lance Henriksen. That's also I expected, but like they make a point of saying like, oh, this thing like entered the atmosphere, like it was always hovering around the planet, but it got a little too close, and that's why it literally blipped on their radar.
So I mean, it wouldn't be the sort of project where they would not be in contact with like HQ, you know what I mean? Like it just doesn't really make sense that they would allow that thing to go into an orbit where it's going to be blown up by the planet's ring without checking out to collect data or whatever. I don't know. I just, with the priority that was placed on acquiring the specimen in the original movie, and like basically above all costs gets that specimen to the Weyland-Yutani scientists, it seems weird that they would just sort of let that station lapse and crash.
I don't disagree with you, but again, how the dialogue phrases it, because when they say like, oh, we're going to steal from like a Weyland-Yutani blah blah blah, and it's like, well, somebody's going to get to it, like someone's going to get to it before us anyway. So I'm not sure if it just happened immediately, and like from what it looks like, there's no mention of escape pods. That's what I also thought was interesting. And on top of that, like there's a chance that maybe no distress signal was sent. Like this is one of those classic instances of just like, and it also explains like something like Burke in Aliens, like being so like, oh, we have to get this thing, and then by the time you get to Alien to the Third Power, maybe like that's the thing. I guess probably Weyland-Yutani wasn't cognizant of that something had even gone wrong. Maybe no distress signal was sent, because that seems to be Rook's big thing, because he seems to be the only fail safe in all this. Like that was one thing too. Like I never got the vibe from the first Alien that the android, like, yes, like, oh god, oh my god,
it was an unprecedented situation.
Sure, but like,
yeah,
I never got the vibe that Ash and Mother in the first Alien are like intertwined, other than Ash is obviously a physical extension of the company. Like, again, like Mother's always made out to be like an operating system. It's like saying, oh, Windows X, like it's like the US government, like, oh, Windows XP is not allowing me to do this.
It's a name. It's not like HAL where it's an actual character.
Or
like,
Skynet. Like it's not like it's not self-aware. And that's the thing where it makes you wonder, like with Rook, was the science officer the only failsafe in any of this? Is he the science officer and the contingency plan wrapped all into one?
Yeah, it's just like it to me, and it's also weird that he's like he has enough power to hang out for the whole remainder of the movie, but he was just sleeping. Like,
well, it's the same thing that happens to him kinda in Alien. Like he's been like some form of like mortally wounded for like a robot, and like he's just incapacitated until they like. It's the same thing that happens in the first one. It's the same thing that happens to Bishop in Alien Cubed.
Yeah, but they didn't do anything for him, did they? I don't remember them like plugging him in or anything. He just sort of started moving.
Oh yeah, they do.
Did they? Okay.
Yeah, they prop him up because the big reveal is that when they pick up the synthetic, they like basically Austin Powers, cover the genitals gag, cover his face as people like hand it off, and then they put him next to a computer terminal and plug him in, and then it's the big reveal that it's poor Ian Holm. Leave him out of it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a little bit. I mean, it's a little more divisive than what they did to Tarkin, because Ian Holm's only been dead for what, like 2 or 3 years. It's a little bit like
4 years.
Yeah, it's like what was the paperwork like? Somebody, let's hear an interview from the family. I don't know. Very weird. But
he's not. I will say that nobody is credited to that character, but there's one line in the credits to say thank you to the estate of Ian Holm.
Oh, okay.
There is no credit to Rook. It's not like it's similar to Ultron Luke Skywalker, with the exception like whereas they credit Ultron Luke Skywalker to Mark Hamill, and then like the actors kind of just like signs like an NDA to never be a part of it outside of like the making of documentary.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they claim it was a puppet. They claim it was an animatronic with a deep fake. That's what they're saying.
Yeah. Well, and it's also the voice is AI generated completely, right? So
that's what they're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's an aspect of it where it's kind of unprecedented, because it's like if it was a puppet that whole time, it's also like fully taking away like one of the lead roles from an actual actor, which I don't know how many times that's happened before. Like, there's a lot of fully animated characters that have a voice actor, but I'm struggling to think of another example where this character, who is around for a good chunk of the movie, has the closest thing to someone on set portraying him as a puppeteer that was animated over top later on. It's pretty minimalistic, just a bump on the road to having movies that have no actual actors anymore. We'll see how that goes. Can't come soon enough.
So okay, I have to ask, because this is like the biggest controversy surrounding this film. People saying that like the effect looks bad. Where are we on that?
I agree. I think that if they would have, like when he's on the monitors and stuff, it's fine. But when they hang on those close-ups, the lips look weird. It's something about the motion blur, like the way the AI does it. And also there's, when you see him propped up on the table originally, it's like they were using the puppet for some wide shots, and like his face is like silhouetted. But then there's some parts where between one cut, the lighting is extremely inconsistent, and it's like he's a silhouette, but then on the close up, it's rather soft and full and well lit. Because I'm pretty sure even to this day, deep fake, it has trouble with like dynamic lighting and harsh shadows and different colored light, because it's pulling from a library of movies, and that it's better for the reference material to be sort of evenly lit. But I thought they held on the close-ups way too long. Like, man, what they did with Lance Henriksen in Alien 3 was awesome. Like it looks like a robot that's been ran over by a truck. It's a puppet, but it has his voice, and you know who it is. It works really well. I think they could have done something like that, or at the very least, cover him in that white android blood so that you're not focusing on how weird he looks. Maybe that was too hard for the deep fake, and they would have actually had to pay animators to do it frame by frame that way. But I did think it looked kind of weird, and I think it was unnecessary. They could have. It was like editing choices that made it look weird to me. I think they held on some of the close-ups too long.
I agree that it's unnecessary. It was jarring when it first happened to me, but maybe 2-3 shots of that CGI face afterwards, I was just like, whatever. Movie's gonna movie, Like I can't stop this.
Yeah. I wonder how it is for people like the real Philistines who don't even know that character is a reference to the original movie. I wonder if they like how much it stands out to them.
All right. So I have an answer to that.
Okay.
So what happened was, because I will say that Rachel, I showed Rachel the Alien movies a few months earlier this year, and she really glommed onto it. Like over the course of many months, showed her Aliens, Alien to the Third Power. She really loved Alien Resurrection, and I kind of forgot Alien Resurrection is also like a gonzo masterpiece. It's insane. You get why that kind of torpedoed the franchise until Alien versus Predator. So we go into this, she has really no context for it outside of the marketing. And when I was explaining her who Ian Holm was, she's like, "Oh, I thought that was David from Prometheus." And I'm like, which is fair. She's only seen she's only seen these movies all once. Definition of she's like, "Oh, I thought that was David." And I'm like, "No, that's the science officer that tries to choke Sigourney with a rolled up dirty mag." And she's like, "Oh." And then so the second time we watch it, she's like, "Yeah, you can kind of tell there's something something weird about it." But I think to the filthy casual, that inaugural viewing, which is how most people are only going to consume this, I think it passes. I think unless you're one of us who's they're pissing on the grave of Ian Holm, I don't think the vast majority of audiences are even going to notice, never mind care.
I'm just more distracted by the fact that she went with you to see it the second time. That blows my mind.
No. She was I will say, she was very enthusiastic. She walked, because Rachel's favorite movie that I've ever showed her is Johnny Depp Lone Ranger. She loves that. She's just "Oh, it's a masterpiece, 10 out of 10. And I'm like, all right, I'm glad we're on the same page. And then coming at when that again, but she loved what would you call it? The epilogue. She loved Engineer Incest Baby. And then what made it even better was Fede Alvarez, this was it last weekend doing an AMA, and he's just yup, it's an incest baby. It's somehow it got better. I don't know how, but he did it.
And then it got worse. And then it got worse again when the actor who played him in the suit came out and started talking publicly when it was getting roasted. But yeah, man. Go ahead. I was just amused by that fact. I feel like that would be an uphill battle for me. That's okay.
No. That's where I'm very blessed as a man. That I have a girlfriend that's on board for all this. She also sat through the Phantom Menace 3 times in the span of a month. So, I truly am thankful. But the thing about the Ian Holm thing, and this is where, thank God for both of you, because I think you both will understand where I'm coming from and not just look at me like a crazy person. I think you're both aware of my argument about Hayden Christensen's portrayal of Anakin in Attack of the Clones under the argument of, oh, he's an angsty teenage space monk. That's why when he's next to a pretty girl he's been fantasizing about for a decade, his delivery of every line of dialogue is so clunky. I have a theory about the Ian Holm thing. And this is where I love to ask Fede Alvarez this. If you go back to when they to the original Alien, after Yaphet Kotto bashes his head off and it's dangling over his head, if you look at that sequence where they're plugging Ash back in, it's very clearly it's a puppet, and then there's a weird edit, and it's Ian Holm sticking his head through a table, and
it's a jump cut, and
yes.
they didn't have to do it, but for those at home, a jump cut is when there's an edit point that the angle is extremely similar to the previous shot, and it's jarring because it doesn't shift 30 degrees or something like that, and it's almost the exact same composition. Maybe somebody walks by or something in Alien, I forget, but it's really abrupt.
It's a very it's I don't want to say poorly timed, but it's if you know what you're looking at, it's jarring. And then once he has his little line that he repeats the exact same goddamn thing for in this movie, he's like, I can't lie about your chances.
Mm-hmm.
You have my sympathies. And then like Sigourney pulls the wire out and it goes back to being like a puppet head. I don't know if the whole Ian Holm like effect in this I don't want to say is it intentionally bad, because I don't think it's a bad effect, but I wonder if it's meant to be intentionally jarring. Like, this is where I mean, like, it's a weird tangential argument to the Hayden Christensen performance in Attack of the Clones is intentional, because that's how a angsty, horny teenage space monk would act around a female he's been fantasizing about for a decade. Like, I don't know if it's me, my deranged brain, or there may be something might be there.
What a great argument to fall back on, even if it isn't true.
You're welcome, Fede Alvarez.
I can't say I ever thought about it that way, but also with, I think, a lot of the stuff that you guys were talking about with the plot holes and why did this, that, the other thing happen, I just was not engaging with the movie on that level. I think since I had such rock bottom expectations, when I was mildly enjoying myself, I was like, I'm like, okay, I just handed myself over. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I picked up on those plot holes. That's what everybody that I went to see it with wanted to talk about afterwards. And I just wanted to talk about weird black ooze lactation, and no one wanted to engage me with that. But I just was like, okay, here we go. I'm just along for the ride.
I feel like I must have missed something, but I don't know I don't know if we saw the same movie or what. Maybe I got the Canada version. I don't know what happened there, but I don't to me, this is like the weirdest thing is probably how it's a mirror of Alien Resurrection's ending, and
yes.
why it's like one is so that you have an alien human hybrid. In one case, the alien queen is giving birth to it, and in this case, a human's giving birth to it, and that sort of accounts for the differences. But I mean, you know, it's even the same color as I think the one in Resurrection is commonly referred to as the newborn.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's even the same color as that. It has the same like mutated, non-existent something or other. Yeah, there's some design references to the newborn in this.
But that's the thing though. Like every element of the franchise is in this movie. Like every element, even when the ex-boyfriend character, the way he gets like skewered by the alien tail and like brought up face to face with the alien, that's a callback to AVP. It's a callback to like when the alien predator have their like after an hour into that movie, like they come face to face. I'm like, they're really doing an AVP callback. And I'm just like, and this can't be by accident. Like this is clearly somebody who's like, I'm going to take from I'm going to take something from every single movie in this franchise. The only movie I don't see anything from would be Requiem. I don't see anything from that, but you could make the exception. That's the argument that it's the teenager cast, because that's what that movie was, a teenager cast.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's also aliens graphically emerging from a pregnant woman. That's an AVPR.
Yep. You can make that's a legit case as well. But you could also say that's also what's her name, Noomi Rapace in Prometheus. You could also make that as well.
Yeah,
maybe I have to finally see Alien versus Predator Requiem, because I loved all that birth stuff. And Chris, you said the Canadian version. It is a short moment where Dora the Explorer is in this movie. The pregnant woman is Isabel Merced, who's Dora the Explorer. And so afterwards I was like, it's Dora. She's pregnant. But there's a scene where after she gives birth, she's like leaning up against the wall, not in the pod anymore. And she reaches down her bra and she pulls her hand out, and there's a shot where there's just black ooze. And the implication is that she's lactating black ooze. And I'm like, movie, you win. This is the greatest thing I've ever seen.
It's true, because that's like the movie during the like, oh god, what are we calling that? Are we calling it the epilogue, or are we calling it the fourth act? It
feels a lot like the end of Alien on the like Narcissus.
It's the end of every Alien movie. Every Alien movie, with the exception of the third one, has like it's not over yet. Like that's every single one of these movies now. So like, I was curious if we were calling it that. Like, Rob, what would you call it? Would you call it the fourth act or an epilogue?
I call it the main course. Okay.
Most Rob answer ever to that question.
Absolutely, I think it is the fourth act because I think since it drags on the detachment of the cargo thing for so long before they crash into the rings. I didn't think of it as an epilogue. I thought of it as like a fully fleshed out act. So fourth act, probably
fair enough. So like during this fourth act, I will say that like, oh God, like watching it the first time, I'm just like, oh, like, again, I'm just rolling with the punches with all this. Cause like, I was just kind of like, oh my God. And then like, once the realization hit, like, oh no, like forget about the black goo, like Ridley Scott forced him to put an engineer into this. And like, I kind of glossed over that moment, like you mentioned, Rob, that like she like reaches into like her brassiere and she like you see her pull something, but I'm like with everything going on, it's very you're distracted as to what's like specific events happening. Mm-hmm. But the second time, I'm like, oh, like this is where we're going, and then you have the engineer incest baby, and that's how it kills her. It like nurses her to death, and I'm like, God damn it, Ridley Scott. God damn it. Like, there's no way Fede Alvarez, even though like at this point, he like, I always think of Fede Alvarez, like in interviews from like the Evil Dead remake, like a decade ago. And I have to realize he's older than that now, but there's no way he's able to pitch that to a Disney executive in 2022. There's no way that he can pitch that and they're signing off on that. That's Ridley Scott being like, nope, that's what we're doing. If you don't agree to this, like this movie's just like, I'm done. Like, that's the beautiful thing. Like, that's the definition of Ridley Scott being Ridley Scott. Like, he really is, like, he is a madman. Like God bless him for all of this. Because there's no way that gets it into the movie unless he puts his foot down.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And I think it's better for it, you know? I wanted to bring this up because this is something, we're talking about Disney with all this. There was something that was going through my head for about the first 3/4 of this film. And of course, what I'm about to explain to you, my experience, is not what actually happens in the movie. But I just had to share it with you guys. So as I mentioned, I saw this a very packed theater in one of those places. It was a Roadhouse cinema, which I guess is the version of like Alamo Drafthouse out here in Colorado, where, you know, there's a button on your seat where you can press it anytime during the movie. And wait staff will come over and they'll take your order. So this whole movie, people were going back and forth. People next to me, behind me, in front of me were ordering pizza and drinks and all that stuff. So I definitely was somewhat, you know, encumbered in my hearing the movie. But for the first 3/4 of the film, I thought the main character's name was Ray and not Rain. And so for those first 3/4, I was like, there is no way Disney would let another female protagonist be Ray. Because if Disney has it say, anytime you type in Ray or Ray Alien, Star Wars merchandise should show up. I finally did hear it as Rain near the end when the waitstaff stopped serving people. But I had that in my head for so long. And I was convinced it was Ray. And so, Zach, I was in the same boat as you. I was like, Ridley Scott must have put his foot down, but the better way was, like Chris mentioned earlier, you put in the chat, Zach, you know, God bless the executive that was on vacation that week. But of course, it was Rain. But even that, so close to Ray. I found that very interesting.
And you can't argue that they're like, when they cast this movie, like I know Kaylee Spaney's like becoming like more and more of like this is her year, obviously, between this and Civil War. But you can't not look at this between her and David Johnson and be like, oh, they are going for a John Boyega, Daisy Ridley vibe. Like, yeah. You just can't not shake that. Like, that's the vibe they're going for.
I didn't get that, but I did think it
really?
was Ray.
You didn't pick up on that at all?
I was hearing Ray for a while. Maybe it's just the way the takes they had, the way some guys are yelling it in the movie. I don't know any of the characters' names other than Andy and Rain. Now that it got clarified for me, but I don't know, man. It's just like like what's even going on with the engineer baby? Like, why is that even a thing? Like, what?
Don't you dare question the greatest character to come out of Disney buying Fox. Don't
Come
you
out
dare.
of Dora the Explorer.
Exactly, birthed by Dora the Explorer.
I saw
And,
a meme of her as Dora and this character like screaming, and it's like, look at that range. That's all the meme said. It's just like, look at the range she has.
But Rob, beyond being Dora, you know who Isabella Merced is also from?
I feel like I saw it. And
It's
it was
a Cinemoddities movie we
familiar.
covered 6 years ago.
Yeah, I remember seeing it. I did not write it down, and I do not remember it. So remind me.
Sicario Dos.
That's it. Yes. Okay. Day of the Soldado. Yes.
Sicario Dos.
I don't remember who she was in that movie. Of course, Zach knows. The only thing I remember about that movie is when Benicio del Toro steals the French fries at the end.
I thought you were going to say from the first Sicario where, oh God, who's the character? It's like, why a terrorist got to blow up Fiji?
Oh, well, yeah, leave Fiji alone, terrorists. Yeah.
Cinemoddities deep cut right there. Oh no, but like, okay. So like one thing I want to get into is just like your characters. And like, and this does, in some of the reviews for this movie, people are saying it has a very slasher movie-esque vibe because of how young the cast is. I never thought that. Like I never picked up on that, or I didn't see it that way. But one thing I will say is that you do have like Cockney British man who's like the annoying one throughout all this. And considering how like antagonistic and abrasive he intentionally is as a character, I'm kind of shocked that like he doesn't really get an egregious like punishment death, and that it's the ex-boyfriend who for the most part is a pretty sympathetic character. Like he does the right thing in every sequence. He really doesn't he doesn't break any of the like horror movie commandments of deserving a severe punishment, because Cockney British man, like his death is weird. Like he takes the cattle prod, shoves it into like have we ever seen this before in an alien movie? Like the alien like cocoon on the wall. Have we seen this before in movies?
No, but it's pretty much, the funny thing about it is it's pretty much exactly from Species.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I don't doubt this is a thing from the comics or video games, but I don't remember ever seeing this in one of the movies before. It's like a form of like alien gestation.
The one other Giger movie.
I definitely don't think it's in any. I'm very, very confident it's not in any of the movies. But that was something. I'm glad you mentioned the video game, Zach. I wanted to ask you guys if you knew about this. I was reading that Fede Alvarez said that Alien Isolation, the video game, was a massive inspiration to him when he was working on this movie. So maybe it's in there, but I don't know. I've never played that game. I've never heard anything but bad things about it. But who knows? Maybe it's in there.
What are you talking? You're actually joking, right? Because that's like the most critically acclaimed video game in human history, probably.
Everybody I know who's ever played it, which is like
Rob.
6 people, they're like, this was the dumbest thing I've ever played, and the AI is
what? You're probably thinking of Aliens, Colonial Marines, Rob. I think that's what you're talking about.
No, it was Isolation, not Colonial Marines, not Fireteam Elite. That I know for sure. It's that one.
This is the first I've ever heard of in 12, 14 years of anyone not liking Alien Isolation.
That game's 10 years old, man. It's hard to believe, but that is a decade-old game now. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I will say that like at one point early in the movie, they're trying to open some sort of space door, and the character does the same motion as you do in that game. Like it's like the lever, and Chris, you probably remember this. You have to like go up to the lever, like yank it twice, and then like it does the thing. Like that's in the movie as well. So oh yeah, Rob, like I know that's what I mean. Like there's from every major Alien property, with the exception maybe of like some of the video, like the lesser video games in the comics, and there's probably comic stuff in here too that I'm not even cognizant of. But oh yeah, man, like Alien Isolation, you can definitely see that in the final product.
But that cocoon, Chris, is not in that game, is what you're saying?
Well, it's kind of dumb because one of the other like nerd franchise complaints that, you know, they've been shortening the gestation period between all these different forms in the movies ever since the first one. But like, man, does that baby grow at an alarming rate to the point where it's like what is he made of? Air? Like I don't understand how he can go from a size of a fetus to like a 7-foot man in 15 minutes. Like that, like he didn't even kill or eat anybody in that time. Like it doesn't even, it's literally not possible. And that is actually the least probable thing shown on screen in the whole film, not any of the content. It's just that, but yeah. So like, if they're gonna put this like egg sac on the wall where it like hibernates in to grow bigger, it's more of the same problem. It costs energy to create a cocoon that you're just gonna leave sitting there on the wall. You know what I mean? Like it's just more mass that has come from literally nowhere. You know what I mean? It's just sitting on the wall now. They did it because it's an interesting design, and the action that takes place in that scene is an interesting statement combined with the design. And I think that's the only reason they did it. But yeah, usually the chest burster the chest burster already sort of looks like the full-grown xenomorph. It's just small, and they've never showed it cocooning in any other movies. They have showed just like in this one, they have showed the shedded skin just lying around, but that's about it.
So once you have Cockney British man like cattle prod the alien into the cocoon, like he gets what, like acided in the face, or no, the tail comes out and like kind of stabs him in the eye. He falls over, the acid bleeds on him, and then he kind of like, I don't want to say he like explodes a little, but like the acid like makes him like pop.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what was happening. I'm like, is that how acid works on flesh? Like eventually you just kind of like have a little mini combustion.
It was, I mean, that might have been my favorite kill, just because like when he watches his own fingers melting away, that was pretty good. But I didn't
like that.
Yeah, I didn't really notice the pop that you're talking about. I must say, but it's like, get up and just don't sit right under it while it's raining acid onto you. That's you would have been all right if you didn't do that.
Zach, I definitely noticed the pop that you're talking about, but I didn't question it because I was very happy that character was dead.
Oh, 100. Oh, no, that's... Yeah. But the thing that's so funny is that, like, he is the most annoying character in the movie, and he's designed to be that way.
Yeah.
But then, like I said, the ex-boyfriend gets the gratuitous death. Mm-hmm. Like, it's weird that, like, it's switched that way. Like, and I get it. Maybe that's intentional because, like, oh, like we kind of like the ex-boyfriend character. Like, we're not that we're meant to like him, but like he's kind of sympathetic, and he's got the sister. He's trying to help all of his friends, and then like to see him die in such a sadistic way is maybe meant to elicit sympathy for all these characters. Even like you even get the moment, with not Daisy Ridley and the not pulse rifle, and it's like no, it's like, oh, it's all right. You don't have to know how to shoot a gun. The gun will shoot the aliens for you. Like if any other movie, whether it be Disney, Warner Brothers, anything else had a moment like that, like, and it's trying to also replicate the Michael Biehn Sigourney moment from Aliens. Like it's trying to do that. Like, oh, it's okay. Like all you gotta do is just like put the auto feature on. It's like this cute little contraption does like an Iron Man armor thing around her arm. And it's like, it'll just shoot wherever you point it. You can't miss. I'm just like, and somehow they sell it to the point where it doesn't seem jarring or hokey.
Well, the big machine gun that Vasquez has in Aliens is supposed to do that. With the Steadicam built onto it. You know what I mean? That's supposed to be like a smart auto turret type thing. But
the movie, okay, but the Vasquez gun does not lay it out the way this movie lays it out,
where it just does all the work for you.
Yes, and it's also that movie doesn't do that.
And it's also takes place before Aliens, so it makes it even more egregious. It's like they should have never missed a single shot in Aliens based on this demonstration of technology.
I will say that one of the people I saw it with is a huge video game player, like tons of nonsense that I will never do. As so many years ago, I explained my hatred towards video games on this podcast, but one of his thoughts after the movie, and we were talking about it, he was like, they've done everything they can in the last few years to take aim assist out of first-person shooters just to put it into movies. And that statement, I was just like, man, I would never, ever think to say those words in that order. I don't know if it's true or not,
Well,
but I found it fascinating.
I didn't think that's the direction things were going, because I think I saw a story on good old IGN maybe last year that Sony patented or I can't remember if they patented something or trademarked something called autoplay for video games, which basically means if you're too slow to get past level 1, you just press this button and you can just watch the gameplay itself, basically. Which is like, I can't think of something more offensive personally, but I thought the games were becoming more accessible rather than less. But what do I know? I still play Halo.
Chris, I couldn't disagree more as that being offensive. As I've said to Zach many times before, the greatest video game ever is you put the disc in, you get all the trophies, you take the disc out. No gameplay necessary. I would love to just watch a game and get all the trophies. That'd be ideal. That's why my favorite game ever is Abzu, and it's just like swimming through an aquarium. There's no challenge. It's just fun. It's just nice and calm.
Yeah. Well, your time's coming, man. Their Sony's on it.
Oh, okay.
You can watch Star Wars Outlaws as if it were a high quality Disney Plus series.
Until it eventually loses money for the company, and Bob Iger shows up to your house being like, "I need that disc back, sir." It's like, and Rob's like, "Well, just let me get the trophies first, and it's all yours, Mr. Iger."
Yep, that's all I want.
Oh my god. But no, one thing I have to say is one thing I have to say, I like all throughout the entire franchise of Alien, all the android characters are kind of great. I'm not sure if you remember, Rob, when we talked about Prometheus and Covenant. I love the Walter character. Okay. I always thought that David had the potential to be one of the best villains of this franchise. That's not just a giant H.R. Giger penis monster. Of course, Ash is a great villain. I think we talked about in our Alien discussion as well, the idea of him, the sexual frustration of android, is a fascinating, provocative topic.
Yeah.
Of course, Lance Henriksen and Bishop is one of the most famous movie robots of all time. But I really dug the hell out of David Johnson's Andy. At no point was I, Rob, there's obviously, I can't go into any movie anymore not thinking about the beep boop trash can dilemma. And I kind of loved Andy. Did you have any problems with him? Was there any beep boop trash can issues with him? Notes that need to be laid out?
Absolutely not. I loved David Johnson's performance as Andy. I was blown away, especially because David Johnson, I was looking at his credits afterwards. I didn't know his name when I went into the movie. I'd never seen him before in anything. I loved the switch when he gets the new little disc in his head and he turns into the company android rather than the defective or damaged android, synthetic, whatever they call it beforehand. I was all about that. Definitely best performance in the movie. I mean, on par with the 7'7" Robert Brochisky or whatever his name is that played the alien human hybrid at the end.
Yeah, and Rob, you should be happy because when he realized his only friend in the world was going to leave him behind, he was like, yeah, seems like the right thing to do.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that was perfect. I was like, okay, something's actually thinking, or being programmed to follow things logically. Yeah. I mean, I loved the whole little bit with David Johnson and CGI deepfaked Ian Holm, where Ian Holm is like, humans are stupid. You need to kill them all. And I'm like, yes.
Yeah, I engage in these social media arguments about these films way more than I should. And there's a glorious 90,000 member Aliens Facebook group called Aliens Only Plus, which is an oxymoron because it says aliens only, but also other alien stuff implied by the plus. And somebody in there was telling me that they found it racist that Rook says to Andy, your model was the backbone of the expansion. And my brain just melted a little bit because I'm just like, you understand that you understand that all the androids, including Rook is currently in half as he's saying this. Rook's dedication to being a company servant is not to be questioned. He's on a
bizarre.
He's on a
Chris. I got no racial undertones of that. If anything, I'm thinking of the end of AI, artificial intelligence, where they show up to Haley Joel Osment and they're like, "You are the early version of us. We respect you." And I'm like, what? That's insane to me. But that's
to
also
be
the
fair,
internet.
It's one idiot who I shouldn't be giving any credence to, but it's just like people like that will just absolutely never be happy. Like, this is a great performance, and it's interesting, and it doesn't offend Rob. It's a beep boop trash can performance that doesn't offend Rob. Like, they're onto something there. They read some Isaac Asimov books or something. You know what I mean? Like, they understand the three laws. It's good. It's good quality content there.
You know what, Chris? You actually make a good point that I did not think about previously. I was somewhat conscious of the fact that it was a robot character that I was absolutely, not against. This movie did something else. I found the character that hated the synthetics to be annoying. Like, in any other movie, I should be like, okay, yeah, like, I want to just, mess with the robot because it's a stupid robot. And like I said, if my microwave doesn't want to work, you smash it against the wall until it does work,
Which never probably works, but
somehow, I mean, you should see my microwave. I mean, I probably am getting radiation poisoning when I use it because it's dented and stuff. But but this movie pulled something off that I'm glad you brought up, because I'm like, wow, they really did make me switch that mentality.
I know that was a highlight, but it's like, for me, it's like, man, give us the wood planet full of monks, man. Let's go somewhere else, man. I'm tired of these space stations. Even Alien 3 and Alien Resurrection didn't veer too far off this sort of playground. You know what I mean? It's about that's why as much as you can make fun of them, the AVPs at least get the xenomorph into a new environment for a change. It's like, get them out into a park in Vancouver, like climb all over a power plant or something. I don't know. I wish they could, because if you keep it in that future time period, there's so many more locale possibilities, especially if you go out beyond Aliens and the timeline, where there's just all kinds of weird colonies all over the place if you count all the expanded universe material. And I think they do. This is a franchise where the canon was not reset by Disney. There's a
Ridley Scott thing as well.
Well, there's a VR Alien game coming out right now that the main protagonist is a Dark Horse Comics character from before the Disney purchase. That tells you all you need to know. Damn. That's like a new Dash Rendar game. It's like, what? What is going on, man? So that's the kind of treatment you get when the IP is not as valuable as Star Wars, I guess. That's pretty much what it comes down to.
I am so glad, Chris, that you brought up a wooden planet. As I was preparing for this recording, I was like, am I going to have to bring it up first, or will someone else bring it up first? The wooden planet. That's the one thing I would add to this movie. Somewhere near the beginning, when they're talking about how they want to get to, I don't know, it's like Planet Iguana or something, like the resort planet that is not the Weyland-Yutani thing. I really wanted them to have one line of dialogue where they were like, well, we can go to Iguana. It's better than that wood planet. I really just wanted one little drop of that. I would have loved it.
Well, Ridley Scott doesn't know what that is. It wouldn't be in there. He doesn't know. He doesn't know what the wood. At that point, he was divorced from all this. It's like, can you imagine someone has to ask him on the press tour for Gladiator 2, be like, "What's your opinion of Vincent Ward's wood planet from Alien 3?" He'd be like, "There's no wood in space." No, that's the point.
Okay.
And why are you asking me?
Well, Fede Alvarez knows about the wood planet for sure. And he was doing podcast interviews. I heard him on an Alien podcast, and he was saying that he was negatively judging actors who auditioned who like tried to flex their franchise knowledge on him and hadn't even seen all the movies, and he's like, you're out automatically. He was talking about actors who said, oh yeah, I've seen the first 2 movies, referring to Prometheus and Alien Covenant. Like actors rolling into auditions saying, I've seen those other 2 movies. Crazy. But
I've seen a movie with an alien in it.
But to be fair, if Ridley Scott's talking to these people, that's again, like if you were to ask Ridley Scott how many alien movies there are, he'd be like 3, and the 4th one's coming out this month. Like he's not looking at the rest of them. Like imagine trying to explain the plot to Alien Resurrection to Ridley Scott. Like it'd be great. Like you've heard stories about him, like what in the early 2000s being like, yeah, James Cameron's going to write it and I'm going to direct it for Alien 5. And Sigourney was somehow going to return. Like, but this is my thing now, because like we definitely have to again circle back to engineer incest, baby. But like 2 things. The next alien thing coming down the pipe is Alien Earth, which apparently takes place a year before Prometheus in continuity.
Ooh, what?
Yeah.
Okay, I actually was I was gonna ask you guys about this. I did not actually know Alien Earth was a thing until yesterday when I saw a teaser for it during Maria Menouñoz's movie as I was sitting in a theater. But now I'm aware.
That's what happened to me sitting in the theater for Alien Romulus for the first time. Like I saw like in the Nuvi thing, Rob. Yeah, I saw that. I'm like, I'd heard they were doing something, but I didn't know it was to the point where like it's there's no footage, like Chris, like it's literally a picture. It's like, imagine the Alien cubed teaser trailer. Imagine that it's a picture of Earth. The xenomorph does little mouthy bite at the screen, and then that's it. And it says like Alien Earth coming 2025 Hulu.
And it takes place a year before Prometheus. That's so weird because it's like, sure,
supposedly.
But like, sure, Ridley Scott, sure, Disney hasn't reset the Alien canon, but there's still more than one Alien canon. Like, because in the universe of Prometheus and Alien Covenant, the AVPs do not exist. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, there shouldn't be xenomorphs on Earth like 100 years before Prometheus. Like, kind of like like especially the weekend before.
Somebody had an argument that if you go back to Prometheus, and in the whatever you want to call it, where the black goo storage, there is like a tableau of like a xenomorph like Christ, and someone's like, there could be something here. Like there's a thing that like these xenomorphs might transcend the engineers. It might be something that exists beyond them. And
yeah, I mean, it's really not explained. It's really not, because
it's ambiguous. It's intentionally ambiguous.
Well, but here's the thing: like the opening of Prometheus, an engineer dumps himself and some black goo into a lake, and that starts life on Earth. And in Alien Romulus, the black goo turns hamsters into the Incredible Hulk.
That was great too. The little like CRTV footage of like a little hamster getting squished and then like rebuilding itself, and
Chris,
then like explodes into like
I'm so glad you reminded me of that, Chris. And in that moment in the theater, it really, and Zach, this is right up, our alley for the time of the year we're getting into. You said hamster. It made me think of the cover to Monster Blood 3 from Goosebumps, where a school gets the monster blood and it makes a hamster go crazy.
It made me think of the Hulk dogs and Ang Lee's Hulk. I was like, what are we doing? What are we doing here? What's going on? Like, that's not what it's supposed to do, is it? I guess in Prometheus, it turns worms into like a weird little
space worms,
snake thing. But that's like a cool Giger design, and this is just like a exploded hamster that's like just got really big and grew longer teeth. Like, it's not as elegant of a design. It's just the hamster grew too big for his cage, basically, when they find it. I don't know. And that killed it, I guess.
Well, yeah, like exploded that. Where's that xenomorph running around? Where is, like, much like we have the dog alien from Alien Cube, like, where's the hamster alien? It's like the size of like a chihuahua just running around the space station still.
And I guess it doesn't give the hamsters don't get the acid blood, I guess, because it's just sort of sitting there. I don't know, man. The black goo is a MacGuffin. It doesn't make any sense. It's like it's
incredible.
It's the like dawn of life.
Oh God. So okay, I have to ask. So like, this is like a box office question now, because like clearly Disney's not thrilled with the box office return for this, because last weekend, or I guess this like Monday of this week, when like all the headlines were coming out, it's like, oh, Alien Romulus, $100 million worldwide opening weekend, which means Disney's not happy with the $40 million domestic opening weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So it's again, we also live in the world now, like between many things. If something doesn't do a $200 million opening weekend and gross $1 billion, it's considered a financial disappointment. Beyond Alien Earth, do you think we're going to get another movie? Not saying with these characters, not with Kaylee Spaney and David Johnson, but like, do we get another Alien movie? Because I know Fede Alvarez is going around being like, I want to co-direct an AVP movie with Dan Trachtenberg of Prey, and like, I want to have fun with these movies. Because I think, have they officially confirmed they're making a Prey 2? Chris?
Yeah, I think that's a little farther along than that. But it's not so much Prey 2 as another Predator movie.
Well, sure, but I mean, like they're continuing doing like the Predator in different time, like a time, like yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, it's as if it was a new idea. It's something that should have been done 30 years ago. As soon as you saw like the pirate pistol be tossed to Danny Glover in the end of Predator 2, you know what I mean? And I mean, which is explicitly in Prey, which is hilarious to me. It's like, y'all remember the ending of Predator 2? It's like, no one watching this movie. 10% of people watching this movie are lucky if they ever saw Predator 2 and they don't remember that part of the ending. But yeah, that was brave. That was stunning and brave, as they say. But yeah, like I think I think then the next Predator movie is like well into pre-production. But it's a good way for Fede Alvarez to get Ridley Scott to unfriend him on social media if he does that.
Blocked, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
that was a great Jimmy C interview from some red carpet where like somebody asked him like, man, they're really messing up this Alien franchise. What with all the AVPs and whatnot? Why don't you come back and just show them how it's done, Jimmy C? And Jimmy C pauses for like an awkward amount of time for a red carpet interview, and then he's like, you almost just convinced me, but it's not going to happen.
Jimmy C's like, I'm going to make an Alien sequel and call it Avatar Fire and Ash.
Yeah, there you go.
At what point? Okay, so at what point, here comes another question. At what point do we get Ultron Sigourney? At what point, like she's in the Disney fold with the Abaddon movies. Like, does it take Jimmy C dying for that? Because you know Sigourney loves money. Like she's like, as much as she complains about hating making Alien cubed and Resurrection, like she's another one. Like she's like the OG Johnny Depp. All they gotta do is like back up the Brinks truck to her house, and she's like, sure, I don't care what kind of schlock this is. Just give me the money and I'll make it work.
Ultron Sigourney was already in Avatar 2, so I think that
okay, that's like that's a weird yes, but like much like we have Engineer Incest Baby, that was like Jimmy C, like Ultron Sigourney. That's different. It's a little more sacred.
I don't think there's ever been
that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the first time where like a 70-year-old woman played like a 14-year-old for an entire film. It's like it's a really landmark moment in cinema history.
This happens in Avatar 2?
Yes.
Okay, I definitely didn't see that movie, so I was unaware.
Rob was the one person who didn't see the $2.4 billion Abaddon sequel.
You know what? It was actually pretty interesting because when that movie came out, I was hanging out with some people and they were trying to plan to go see Avatar 2 the following day. And I absolutely had nothing going on. And I was like, I'm going to sit this one out.
And you haven't talked to them since.
Rob, where I thought you were going with that, you'd be like, oh, like me and my friends were going to go see Avatar 2 the next day. And then when we got to the box office, they bought their 2 tickets first. And then as I was about to give the ticket taker my credit card, I saw there was a showing of Uncut Gems. And I was going to be like, sorry, guys. I was hoping it was going to veer right back into that story again.
Oh, that would have been wonderful.
I like to imagine it's like for every single time Rob goes to the movies, it's like a weird fork. It's like that fork in the road like meme where it's like you have like, oh god, like the city on the shining hill, and then on the left you have like the dark like like medieval jungle or like just like woods, and like the city on the shining hill is new contemporary movie, and then like I'm sorry, it's the other way around. The city on the shining hill is Uncut Gems, and then like the dark like woods is whatever the contemporary release is. It's like Rob's like, I know what is safe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, there's certainly been times where I have, got a ticket for a movie through Fandango, and then like 10 minutes before the movie starts, I'm at the theater, I refund it and buy a ticket for a different movie. It's just how it goes sometimes.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm trying to think if there's anything else like really super egregious that I need to complain about, because that's just my religious custom.
The true way that film discourse is tackled these days. Is there anything else I need to complain about?
Yeah, like, well, there was like a quasi Narcissus shuttle near the destroyed remains of the Nostromo at the beginning of the film. It's like, why is that there? That shouldn't be there unless there's like 50 of those on the Nostromo, which I would find unlikely. It's way too close by to be the one that Ripley's in, so it shouldn't be in that shot of all the drifting garbage. But yeah, and then the alien's a bit close to the other wreckage. Like they sort of flew out a ways
Yeah.
before she kicked him out of the airlock. Unless he's like just like he's paddling towards it because there's nothing else. She may have grab onto some of this stuff before he cocooned into that rock. He just like swam towards it. I don't think that's how space works. But
I don't know. I don't think I have any other like plot holes that are worth bringing up because, like I said, I didn't really engage with it that way, and I don't remember any others that we haven't already talked about from the people I saw it with. I did have a few questions, and maybe you guys, just like I focused in on the black ooze lactation scene, maybe you guys focused in on some of this stuff that you can answer this
Naturally.
about. Near the beginning, the main character, Callie Spaney, going to get her travel pass or whatever, and it's revealed that she can't get it because they've upped the quota for the number of hours you have to work before you can leave the planet or whatever. The group that I saw it with, the four of us, we were kind of split. The way that it's framed, or the way that it's shot, and the way that like the visual storytelling is, I took it as the woman behind the counter was the one who purposefully changed only Callie Spaney's quota. That was how I took it, but that can't be the case because that's like a minimal character, and but it really played that way to me. I don't know, how did that work for you guys?
I agree with them. I don't think that's the case, but I'm glad you reminded me of that moment because that really bothered me. The idea that like even in all of the other sequels where they had to like elevate how evil Weyland-Yutani is, they're never like if you watch the director's cut of Aliens, like Hadley's Hope is not a miserable place. It's like they're just regular families doing their thing. Like they know what they signed up for. It's not a prison where like you're literally denied your vacation time. And it's like, not only are you denied your vacation time, but you must stay on this mining planet for 7 more years rather than go on vacation. That it was so implausibly evil to me that it actually like really took me out of it. Like early in the movie, I'm like, listen, guys, in the other Alien movies, they incentivize their employees to do immoral things with shares. They don't just say you're in jail forever. Yeah. One works a lot better than the other. I wasn't crazy about that, but I mean, it's tough because like if they really were like mining colonies like way out in deep space, like transit on and off of them would be at a rather extreme premium, but the way it was presented, they weren't employees as much as slaves basically. And it played really weird to me.
Yeah, I'm with you there as well, that it did take me out a little bit. I mean, but also at the same time, I was just along for the ride, and I was like, this is the beginning. Yeah, we need a reason for her to go on this mission. So yeah, she's got to be there another 7 years or whatever. So, okay, and on we go.
Yeah, and I guess they just, you're like you're just allowed to have access to a ship that can like easily break orbit if you're a bunch of teenagers. I don't.
Well, I think it's the thing that Solo did. Like, remember what Woody Harrelson had the hauler that they stole from Mimban? I think it's that same principle. Is it like, think of all the like construction tech that probably is space capable, and just like if something goes missing, it's like, all right, like it is what it is. Like it's not shocking.
Yeah, and then like, does the company know that Andy is just like walking around doing regular mining tasks? Because like doesn't he just like fingerprint his way like into Romulus Station? Like that's a like pretty high level of access, right?
I know there's a line of dialogue where they say like, "Oh, he speaks mother," and that's how they just sweep it all under the rug. That he can just put his finger into the jacks, and he basically has the
He's
data
R2D2.
spike from RoboCop.
Right.
Well,
I guess
he can R2D to it.
Yeah.
He's a computer interface. That's I guess so. Like yet another criticism never levied against Star Wars that we all just accept for granted, that R2D2 can just wreak havoc on the Death Star's systems with no consequences. Yeah, but I don't know, man. I just wanted to go somewhere new. I guess maybe they need it. It's been so long since Covenant that they sort of had to do like a bit of a thematic reset back to basics here. But like, I don't know, man, Fede Alvarez, like he's tap dance and he's playing the game, like I heard one interview, he said, I think in the last, in the some of the sequels really got away from the core idea. Meanwhile, 2 seconds later, Ridley Scott's got him on the phone, like, so the black goo and the engineer baby, and like, it's like you can't have it. You can't say you're best friends with Ridley Scott and then also say the sequels aren't good.
Sure, he wasn't referring to Cubed and Romulus. I'm not wrong. I mean, Resurrection.
That is no, like on a press tour, you're not referencing Alien Resurrection. Like it's like it's not part of the cultural dialogue anymore for a long time. Like no one who's spending money remembers that it exists except us, and we're a real minute fraction of the population. Rob barely remembers that Alien Resurrection exists.
You know what it is like? Oh my god, it's like broke. Ultron Ian Holm, woke. Ultron Winona Ryder.
There you go, Zach. Chris, you were absolutely right about me and my memory of Alien Resurrection. I completely forgot Winona Ryder was even in that movie.
It's weird seeing like that, like the preview for like Beetlejuice,
Yes.
and then seeing like an alien movie. It's just like, go figure.
Yeah.
It's all connected. All right. Anything else about Alien Romulus?
My second question, other than the what I thought could have possibly been the secret Thanos villain of the movie, the lady behind the counter at the beginning. There's a scene. I think it's after they rescue Dora from the cocoon. Well, before that, we think that the movie actually killed a pregnant woman, which I was actually excited about. I was like, oh my God, they killed a pregnant woman? You go, movie. But of course, she's alive in the cocoon. Yeah.
Rob, you need to watch Alien vs. Predator Requiem. But anyways, continue.
Okay, yeah, I've never seen it. So they rescue her and they're running. It's when they get to the elevator, and it's right before the ex-boyfriend of the main girl dies. When they get to that like 3-way intersection with the elevator, there's a small moment where Andy like kneels down and he puts his hand through like this blue light that's covering, like it's not fog, it's like light that's like an inch or two above the floor, and he puts his hand through it, and it was significant enough for me to be like, oh, what is this blue light? But it is never brought up again. Did that track? Did you pick that up at all?
Okay, so that's stupid, and you're right to point it out because it shouldn't be there. Basically, it is a visual reference to the original movie where the on the derelict engineer ship, the space jockey ship, the alien eggs have that one of those lasers over top of them, as if crossing that laser like triggers them to wake up or something. But that has no business being on the Romulus station, and it's just a visual member berry that's there for no reason.
You're saying that's from the first, like, Alien?
Yeah, like it's just they're trying to recreate a look of a scene from that movie, but it's also where it happens in the original movie is not even on a human spaceship, so it makes no sense that it's there.
I guess that's even. I mean, I love Alien, the first one. It's one of my favorite movies ever, and I've seen it a bunch. I haven't seen it in a while. I have no memory of what you're describing.
It's right when John Hurt goes up to the eggs and the face hugger gets him.
Okay. Yeah, that did not track with me, but in the moment it was so highlighted that I was confused by it, because I thought it was like, oh, he knows that something like this is going to be their next way out of a situation or something, and it never came back, and I was just scratching my head at the end like, what was that? But okay, I get you, Chris. Thank you for the explanation.
It's just
that
nonsense.
The movie did not give us. Yeah.
It's window dressing.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions, comments, concerns about Alien Romulus?
It's better than the Acolyte ? I don't know what to tell you.
I don't even
that's
think
a
I know
topic
what
for
that
another
is.
day.
Yeah, I don't even think I know what that is, so I can't comment.
All you need to know is that at some point you'll be forced to watch all of that.
I figured. Okay.
You'll be forced.
At least they can't add any more to it.
Yeah,
There you go. You're safe
much,
there.
Much like Kenobi, it's got, if it ever gets a physical media release, which is very much in doubt right now, it will be branded as the complete series.
Hey, if it has another character as great as Baby Leia, I'll be on board with it. Okay.
There's a Rat Boy.
I guess I'll have to see it, because Rat Boy isn't enough to do it for me.
It actually has 2 baby Leias, Rob, and they both do silly stuff.
That might be too much. Yeah. That might be pushing it. I do want to say the last thing I think I have in my notes on Alien Romulus is I absolutely loved the space visuals, especially at the end of the ships crashing into the rings and stuff. I was so on board with that. I thought that looked fantastic.
Yeah, it looked a lot better than similar things in earlier sequels, for sure. The explosion of the Nostromo might be the worst thing in the original movie by far. It is literally just cartoon yellow, blue, and white, like flashing on the screen. I don't know. Ridley Scott redid the computer monitor insert shots in 2003. Why he didn't just paste a better explosion GIF over the Nostromo blowing up, I will never understand. But yeah, and just some of these, and when the ship crashes into Earth at the end of Alien Resurrection, jeez, does that look terrible. It looks like Nintendo 64 graphics. It really is just quite offensive. And the size of the explosion would knock the Earth out of its orbit. But never mind that. But yeah, I agree. I think the spaceship shots, all that was really sound. There was some cool moments where it showed like a docking procedure on the outside and there was no sound, but then it cut right into the inside and there was like a sound from the docking. Like it's like, oh yeah, there's atmosphere inside, so you'll hear some contact from the docking that you don't hear outside. Like there's cool stuff like that where they actually acknowledge through editing that in space no one can hear you scream. You know what I mean? Like they remembered that there's no sound in space for a few shots. It's good.
Yeah. And then, of course, I said this is the last thing in my notes, but I found one other. I was giggling because I do think it is supremely goofy. The anti-gravity floating around the alien acid blood and using the guns to propel them around. That was a little too far for me.
Wall-E logic.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I think that, I saw a lot of people bothered by that. I don't think it got me in quite the same way, just because it's like, I mean, the basic idea is that like it's not forcing the acid to like straight to a specific part of the ship that's going to cause a pressure leak. I mean, it's like in the first movie, the alien blood goes through like 3 levels. I think they chase it down to until it sort of like oxidizes. Like, that stuff's no joke, man. Like if you're on the outside layer, like you'd toast. Yeah. So, I like, maybe is it the animation that was tripping people up? They didn't like how it looked. Like, I don't know. It was cool. I didn't mind the 0G stuff. I like when they get around to demonstrating that.
For me, it was the floating around, and I think maybe the editing was part of it, where when it's like the moment where the main girl uses the gun to like push her away from some of it. I remember it being like, just rapid fire cuts of there's some acid, there's her, there's some acid, there's her, there's some acid, there's her. Then the gun goes off, and I'm like, you could have done that in just one wide shot. I would have been fine with it. Because it's like, I know there's more time in the movie. The wait staff hasn't brought us our checks yet, so
Yeah, that should be illegal. I went to a place where you can order food, but there's a cutoff like 5 minutes into the trailers, and that's how civilized society should operate.
I do
yeah.
want to say, I went and saw this last weekend, the glorious Ben Affleck's birthday weekend when it came out.
Huzzah.
I drove down to Colorado Springs to visit some people because we all had the weekend free, and I was like, oh, we should all go see Alien, and that's how I ended up seeing with 3 people who had never seen an Alien movie, but were aware of the franchise and imagery through cultural osmosis. When they told me, they were like, oh, we're gonna go to this theater, and they know I love going to the movies and I'm very familiar with movie theaters, but the way they were explaining it to me was they thought I was going to be blown away and had never heard of the concept of like ordering food during a movie. And I'm like, oh, Alamo Drafthouse. And they're like, no, it's Roadhouse. And I'm like, Alamo Drafthouse, I think, was around longer than this family-owned chain in Colorado. And so they were explaining it to me, and they're like, you can order food anytime they come to your seat. And I'm like, I hate everything about this. I just want to make that clear for both of you and the audience. I despise this concept.
Good.
I am someone who wants complete like immersion, like just nothing. I mean, I know, Zach, the famed non-existent Taylor Swift Eras Tour discussion between you and I.
Yes, that never came to fruition.
I was just infuriated by the little girls and the little girls' moms dancing in the aisles while that was playing, because I was like, this is cinema. This is art. Be quiet. Sit down, So I was totally against this type of theater going experience, but I acquiesced because, well, one, I was outvoted, and 2, I had such low expectations for this movie. I was like, yeah, if I'm bored in the middle, I can order a pizza.
Yeah, it's like it's for people who haven't heard of restaurants, I think. Yeah. I don't know. Anyways, I'm like, listen, I'm good on this. It's weird. It's like, I recommend it because what else are you going to watch? You going to go see you going to go watch The Rings of Power season 2 on Amazon? No, you're not going to do that. Go watch Alien Romulus because it is moderately better than most of the things currently available that are new.
I like I said, I was pleasantly surprised. I ended up giving this a 3.5 out of 5. Probably a full star came from the alien incest engineer baby, whatever we're calling it, because I loved that stuff. Like I said, that was my jam,
What a time to be alive. All right. So concludes this episode of Knights of Vader, an Alien Romulus podcast. Check out the Facebook group. Type in Knights of Vader into Facebook and you will find us there waiting for you. At KOV Podcast on Instagram. Harass Chris. Tell Chris that Ultron Winona Ryder is the future. If you like what you hear, please rate, review, subscribe to us on iTunes, Spotify, whatever platform you are listening to us on. Thank you to An Insperiority Complex.
You're welcome.
For providing our theme song. Check out the show notes to hear more from them. For questions, comments, concerns, or snide remarks, you can contact me, Zack, on Instagram at Rogue Knight, or on Twitter, where Twitter is actually getting kind of fun again, at Cinemoddities on Twitter, because those other accounts are still deleted and Elon Musk will not reinstate them. And Chris, when you are not trying to get, no, it's Russ. Russ is the one trying to get the R2D2 cooler, right? Or is that you too?
Yeah. Well, I found a different. I found a different R2D2 that I wanted, but mine is vintage. It's from 1983, so I might get that on the weekend. But yeah, you can. I was on a rare occurrence. I was actually around for the full recording of the Vintage Rebellion podcast, which is the one for August, if you're looking back, and that's a 4-hour vintage collecting focused podcast that has interviews and all kinds of crazy stuff. So it's me and 4 British guys for like 4 hours, which it didn't actually take that long to record, but they have supplementary content. So check that out if you want to hear a bunch of deep dive Star Wars stuff that will literally sound like an alien language to you if you don't collect vintage Kenner stuff.
So imagine the Cockney British guy from Alien Romulus is talking about action figures.
Yeah. Do you know what a 20 back C Darth Vader is? It's one of 20 cardback variations for a vintage Darth Vader. Fascinating stuff.
Chris, I'll tell you, it sounds more interesting than the Lego talk I've heard from you guys, so I'll give you that.
Yeah. Well, it's sort of like that, except for it's actually more expensive than even Lego toys. It's really fascinating. It's crazy.
Right on.
Alrighty, Rob. We are okay. I guess I should finally say it. I've been building it up for so long. Rob, is Monstober 2023 safe? Is it all right? Like, are you giving it water? I might need proof of life.
It is. It's safe. Everything's backed up, as are many other episodes. Hey, if you're a fan of the Cinemoddities or a subscriber of the Cinemoddities Patreon, that's what exists because those people are actually paying us. So that's where my focus is. One day, many episodes will come out on the main feed again, I think. Other than that, if you want to find me anywhere, the only place you can find me online is at Led Newstat on Letterboxd. I am vehemently and very, anally precious of my Letterboxd account. I record everything. And then the joke that I've made on a few other occasions is I currently work in a house in Northern Colorado. So if you want to see me, come to commit a and apply for the Greeley, and I will get to see you there.
Now that's how you provide it. That's how you record an outro, folks. Now that is a call to action. If I've ever heard a call to action before.
I've been telling all my friends, they're like, "Hey, Rob, I'm thinking about coming out to visit you." I'm like, "You come out, you commit a and lie about needing your GED, and I'll teach you."
Man, beautiful outro. Could not have scripted that. Like that's an outro that Ridley Scott would get behind. Like that's that level of insane. Beautiful stuff, everybody. Good night, but not goodbye. And as always, may the force be with you.